My name is Nina Ferry. I am a December 2013 graduate of Grace College. I was a triple major while at Grace, history, social studies education, and special education, which is why it took me 4.5 years. But now I am a teacher and coach at Warsaw Community High School. I am a special ed teacher, and then I also teach history. And then I'm also a cross-country coach and a track coach at the high school, so I have quite the full plate.
So you wear a lot of hats.
I do wear a lot of hats, yes.
How did you decide on the 3 majors? You just kind of decide on one, or just
Yeah, it was really funny. I remember when I first came to Grace, I came with as just strictly a social studies education major. And I was told that I would change my major like multiple times before I graduated. And which was true, but I never dropped any of my majors. I just kept adding them. So I added special education to make myself more marketable in the teaching profession my freshman year. And then actually my sophomore year, I took a history class for my social studies ed major, and it interested me more, and I wanted to research this further. And so I was talking to one of the history professors, and I said, I think I'm just going to write a paper over the summer. And he's like, why don't you just add history as a major? You can actually make that paper count for something. So that's kind of how my history major got added, is that I just had to take that senior SEM class, and so I just kept adding majors on to my schooling. Yeah.
And was teaching something that you knew you wanted to go into, like right when you went into college, or?
Yeah. Actually, I've been wanting, teaching was my first. That's why I came to Grace, is because I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher pretty much my entire life. Always had a love for history. My dream was to be a high school history teacher, and I was public schooled all through K through 12, and I wanted a Christian education to help build me before I jump out into public education to teach. And so I went to Grace and was told that social studies education is a tough market, and it is. That's an honest truth. It is a very tough market. And it's very overflooded and overpopulated and everything. And so I've always had a soft spot for working with students with special needs. I'm also very, very passionate about social justice and getting kids, being a voice for kids that don't really have a voice. And so I added on special ed. And so that's how those two kind of came to be. But yeah, I've always wanted to be a teacher of some capacity, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's really neat. So you were able to kind of follow through with your dream.
Yeah, definitely.
What attracted you to high school versus maybe trying for college or even younger kids?
Yeah, well, when I was in college, the more I was exposed to higher education, the more I was exposed to the academic side of history more than just outside of the high school classroom. I added that to I think that's what I really want to be is to, after I put in a good amount of years of teaching at the high school level, my dream is to be a college professor. But younger kids, the reason why I do not teach younger kids is if you ever place me in a room with children under the age of 13, you would know why I choose high school. I can handle anything. I love high school students. I can handle them. I understand what's going on. Little kids, not there, can't do it. So that's why I chose high school, and I've always loved high school. The teachers that I had in high school were definitely the ones that made the biggest impact on me. And so that's a whole other part of why I've always wanted to be a teacher, is because I've wanted to be that teacher for another student. And so again, I've had so many high school teachers that were really impactful in my life, and so that was another reason why I was more drawn towards high school than elementary school, minus the fact that, again, I don't really work well with kids, tiny kids.
You were able to draw some inspiration then from your high school teachers.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Did you also find kind of a specific area of history then as well, or just kind of you found an interest in history from them?
I didn't really find an interest in history, a specific area interest in history, until I got to college. I've always loved history. Even when I was little, I've always loved history. So that just kind of fit my path in terms of being a teacher. Yeah. So it wasn't until I got to college that I really got interested in American religious studies. And that's actually what my senior sem paper was about pacifists during the Civil War and how they were treated during the Civil War and how that led to the South's demise, along with everything else. But so that's actually probably one of the areas of history that I'm most interested in now is American religious history, and not even necessarily Christian religious history, but just all the different. America's been like a breeding ground for some interesting religions to start. So, that's really sparked my interest in time. Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting, kind of part of history to be interested in, because I think a lot of people find that probably maybe a little less glamorous than
a war
or
something.
Right.
I don't know. I think that is my people. I like my people aspect. I am a huge introvert, so I don't like interacting with people too much, but I love learning about people. I love learning about their cultures, and there's just something that really gets me, really intrigues me about why certain people do certain things, and that's another reason why I love it so much, is because it's a story. I'm teaching my kids in my history class right now, trying to teach them perspective and the importance of understanding historical perspective instead of just putting their opinion on everything. I'm trying to teach them how to, look at history as if it were a foreign country. John Fia paints a wonderful picture, and I think it's really, really good for when teaching history. It's that, it's like a foreign country. You can't go in with all these preconceived notions, or else you're not going to really experience it. And that's what I'm trying to teach my students right now, which can be really difficult, because I think we want to go in with like, I have this one idea of, civil rights, or I have this one idea. Right now we're going through the progressive era. And they have this one idea of what a union is and why unions are bad. And then, we open up to, this is why unions existed. And so that's been really, really cool to see. But that's the whole reason why I love history, is because I love just studying the people and studying their stories. I think that's kind of, again, why I tend towards American religious history, is because to me it's fascinating. I get lost in military mumble jumble, but for some reason, American religious history gets me. So yeah.
And I definitely agree with you that getting that perspective can be really difficult. I think especially if you're raised kind of your whole life with a certain outlook on life, a certain worldview, and so then kind of trying to turn that around and view a historical situation from a different standpoint can be really hard.
It's hard. Yeah, it's definitely hard. So it's been interesting trying to teach my kids that. So I don't know if it's getting through with them, but at least I'm trying.
Yeah. Now, after you graduated Grace, what was your goal after that? Was there a specific school you were trying to get into, or just kind of any high school that offered you a job? How did that work?
Yeah, when I was at Grace, I started to observe actually in Warsaw High School my sophomore year in the history department. And so I had a lot of connections with Warsaw. Again, I'm from the Chicago suburbs. I had a feeling I wanted to stay in this area, though, directly after graduation. And so actually when I graduated, though, I didn't know if I was going to go straight into grad school to pursue a higher degree in history, or to go into teaching. And so I kind of found myself at a fork in the road. And with some guidance, I decided to at least dip my feet into teaching. And so I graduated in December, and that was really difficult because schools don't usually hire teachers in December. They usually hire in May for the next school year. And so I was hired in January of 2014 at Northside High School in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's an inner city school. And I applied there because I was so nervous that I wouldn't get a job. So I was like, I can't wait till May. I need to start applying everywhere now. And I did start applying, and I started getting calls, and I ended up getting a job. And so I took my first teaching position there. And then a position opened up here at Warsaw High School that May. And actually, I was originally interviewed to teach history at the high school, at Warsaw Community High School. Was interviewed to teach for a history position, and was offered a special ed position. And so for my first year at Warsaw, I was a special ed teacher at Northside. For my first year at Warsaw, I was a strictly special ed teacher, co-teaching in the English classrooms, and helping students that are integrated into general education classrooms. So students that struggle with emotional disabilities, learning disabilities, things that you really probably could not see that they have. That was my job my first year at the high school. And then my last year went well. And my love of history is still something that I want to teach history. I want to. And so my co-teacher and I pitched an idea to administration that we would like to try to create this class, new curriculum of English 11, which is American history, or American literature, and then U.S. history, which you don't take till you're a junior, and combine them together to make one block class. So it'd be 2 periods long, and we'd kind of have our own curriculum and go through it together. Well, we didn't think it would go through. It went through like that. And so that's how I'm teaching history this year. So I teach 2 periods. It's really fun because I get 2 periods a day outside of my the craziness of my job, and get to teach history, which has just been so cool, that the school has encouraged me to add that, and has allowed us to add that. I think that's pretty neat. So that's kind of how I got to the spot where I am today. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting then that you're able to kind of combine those 2 different subjects.
Yeah.
How exactly does that work? So you kind of try to things that complement each other in the different sections?
With the American history, yes. It's almost seamless how much they overlap. Right now in our English 11, we're reading through The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. Mm-hmm. And when we started The Jungle, we were just finishing up Reconstruction after the Civil War. And so as we're reading The Jungle, we've gone through Reconstruction, Gilded Age, Progressive Era, and we're going to finish up The Jungle right as we get into the Roaring Twenties. But everything, it's been really, really cool to see the kids making the connections. The Jungle has probably been our best unit where our history is just really combined well with our English. And the kids are just, everything that we're learning about in history is happening in the book, and they're just making those connections left and right. And it's been really seamless to make that connection and have that balance out in the classes. It's really funny because they ask my co-teacher and I, they were like, are we doing history right now or are we doing English? And it's like, you can't tell, and that's a good thing. I'm okay with that. So that's been really cool to see. But yeah, we have a good class, and it's cool because they are kind of our guinea pig classes. It's the first time we're doing this. But I think after the success that we kind of had with the class this year, I'm excited to do it again next year. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And are there other subjects in the school where they'll sometimes combine it, or is this fairly unique?
This is fairly unique.
Okay.
This is fairly unique. Yeah. Right now, I don't think there's no other class that's a combined class that is cross-curricular. So sometimes for like science, you have a chemistry and a physics class that are together, but those are both science classes. This is the only class that the school offers that's a history class and an English class. So you have 2 departments coming together to teach one class, which is pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is really cool that you're able to do that then. So I don't know if you can take us through what some of your daily activities or duties would be here. I'm sure it varies by the day, but are there usual things that you kind of do on a daily basis?
I have a set schedule.
Okay.
I do. I have a set schedule. I am in the English 12 classes, first period and second period, and my role in that class is to be not an aide, but a help to the English teacher, and kind of those classes are for students that have not yet passed their exam, their ECA, which is a state of Indiana test you need to pass in order to graduate high school. Okay. And so it's about 75% of the kids in that classroom have some sort of special need. And then, so those are the first 2 periods of my day. And then third period and fourth period are our U.S. history, English 11 class. And then 5th period, 6th period I spend in the resource room, which is a special ed resource room, where I aid students with homework, make sure that they're up to speed on their grades. And so that's what my schedule is supposed to look like. But as you saw when you walked in, that's pretty. My typical day is kind of crazy. Okay. It's absolutely crazy. I have a caseload of 30 students outside of the classes that I am teaching. And so my caseload, I'm in charge of creating their education plan, make sure they get the right help in the classroom. A lot of my students have emotional disabilities, and so they can have meltdowns during the day. And I'm usually the first responder for that because I have a relationship with them, and I've been working with them since their freshman year. And so today, I was pulled out of my resource class. I should have been a resource, but I was pulled out because one of my students was having a meltdown. And so I don't think there's been one day this year where I've gone from my normal schedule, first through seventh period, with something not coming in. But that's okay. There's never 2 days in a row that are alike, and that can be crazy sometimes and nuts, but it makes things interesting. There's never a dull moment in my job. Never.
Never going to be a boring day.
No, that is for sure. That is for sure. Yeah. So.
What is teaching special education like then? What is your approach maybe to that compared to maybe the other classes you work with?
What do you mean?
Is there just the way you put together curriculum and the way you work with the kids? Is there a different approach you have to that, or is it all pretty much?
To be honest with you, I would say that the way that I approach my students, my special needs students, my students with special needs, is very similar to how I approach all of my students. I don't have a lot of, especially in this district and the district I worked in before, and really anywhere in America, you're going to have kids that come from some really rough backgrounds, and half of their problem is the home life that they're coming from. And so when I'm in front of a classroom, there could be kids that are acting out that might not have a special need, but still need that same support, that same help as if I were working with one of my special needs students. So really, when it gets down to it, I don't think that my interaction with students or even my teaching changes too much. I try to be very open-minded and accommodating to the kids and their situations, and that can be tough, but yeah. Yeah.
And when you're putting together then things like curriculum and stuff, how involved are you in that, or is that like a lot of stuff that's just kind of handed down on you from like supervisors? How does that work?
For our U.S. history class, we're creating everything from scratch.
Okay.
We have the Indiana state standards that we have to meet, but other than that, it's been cool because the history department has kind of been like, we're giving this to you. Like, if you hit the power standards, you can use the books you want. You can use a textbook as a guide. So that's been awesome because it gives us so much freedom to do what we want to do. But at the same time, it's been kind of crazy because it's like we're creating this class from the ground up. But it has been kind of cool to have that freedom. But in terms of the history class, I have nothing but the Indiana state standards to go off of. Which has been kind of interesting. The English 11 or the English 12 that I co-teach in does have a set curriculum. All those kids, our goal for those kids is for them to pass the ECA, which they take in December and then again in May if they fail it again. And so there's a very set, rigid curriculum to that we have to cover that focuses on things that are going to help them pass that test. So, but it's much more lenient with our history class, which has been fun. So, yeah.
Are those state standards then, is that just to meet a certain test score, or is there a lot of things involved?
There's a ton of things involved in state standards that we could have a whole another interview about. Yeah. Get on that. Yeah.
Leave that one alone.
We'll leave that one off to the side. We won't touch that one. Yeah.
That's understandable. Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of work that goes into figuring all that out.
Yeah. Whether it's good or bad work, yeah.
So then, with everything you're doing here, you've obviously got a lot of stuff you're involved in. What do you find is probably, maybe in your opinion, what would be one of the most rewarding things, maybe a couple of the most rewarding things for you as you're working with these students?
I was thinking about this when I was reading through those. Probably one of the most rewarding things, and it's actually going to be one of the hardest things that I do as well, but one of the most rewarding things that I do is working with the population of students that I work with. It's difficult. It's very, very difficult because my end goal is to get them to graduate. And either their home lives or their academic issues or, whatever they struggle with can be a hindrance to them getting to that point. And so last year was the first year that I actually got to see kids that I poured into throughout the year walk across that stage in June And that was awesome. That was so great. That was so rewarding. That was like, yes, like all that work, all that stress, all the tears, everything, that was worth it. And even on the smaller scale of helping a student, one of my students with autism, I have a couple students in my caseload with autism that we've been working so hard on having him try to understand other people's feelings and his feelings as well and recognize those. The other day, I looked sad, and he comes up to me and said, "Miss Ferry, did something I say make you feel sad?" And like nothing that he said made me feel sad, but the fact that he recognized that I was sad, I was like, yes, like you recognize an emotion. That's awesome. So just even seeing those little victories to like the biggest victory, which is seeing them cross that stage in June. That's probably one of the most rewarding part of teaching, especially from my special ed standpoint, which has been really, really neat. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool when you can see them follow all the way through and graduate like that. I'm sure that's...
Yeah, it's a beautiful feeling.
Now, you mentioned at the beginning that you're also involved with some of the athletics. If you can talk a little bit about that, what all do you work with there?
Yeah, I've actually been a track coach here at the high school for 4 years. So I started coaching at the high school before I even graduated from Grace, which was a really, really cool opportunity. And in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, if I get a coaching job there, hopefully they'll help me get a teaching job, which it did. And so, yeah, I'm a track coach, and I coach the throwers for the girls' track team, and have a group of about 20-some girls on a team of about 80 total. And so my throwing group is about 20. And that's really fun. I'm the only throws coach, and that's been a really good time. It's been cool because when the first year I started coaching, I had a group of freshmen. They're seniors this year, so to see them go that's my first group that I've seen go all the way through high school, which has been really, really neat. And just seeing them grow as athletes and even in their academics too has been really cool. This year was my first year that I've been asked to. I was asked to coach cross country, which cross country and track usually go hand in hand, but cross country and a throws coach usually don't go hand in hand. But the head coach's idea was they need more of a female presence on the team because it is a girls' team and they only have all male coaches. And he's like, why don't you try it? So I did, and I ended up loving it. Like, it was really cool because my role was to encourage the girls, take their times, and that was it. Like, those were my main roles as a coach, and so that took a lot of stress off of me that I normally have on me during track season. And so, but it was a whole different group of girls. Cross country is a very interesting sport, and it's fun. And I've enjoyed it, but yeah.
Were you involved with much athletics while you were at Grace? Or?
When I was at Grace, I was a track and field athlete.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a scholarship at Grace, and so I threw at Grace my freshman, sophomore, junior year, and then decided to take my senior year off, and that's when I took up coaching at the high school. Is my senior year of college at Grace. So yeah, yeah. So I do, and I was a track athlete, if you will, all through since 6th grade. So track is my longest lasting sport.
You had some experience
Yes,
before you started teaching.
Yeah. Still learning though. My goodness, still learning. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm assuming that, so there's kind of is this just like all within, a lot of it within the state of Indiana as far as the teams you play against, other high schools, things like that? Mainly,
our conference is the surrounding lakes area.
Okay.
So Wawasee, Whitco, more of a closer radius. And then, but when it comes to who else we play, it's all of mainly northern Indiana. We don't see the rest of the schools until we get down to state, which we actually have gotten down to. I've been very, very blessed to be a part of an awesome program. We've gone to state we've won conference in track and field 10 years in a row.
Wow.
So I've been there for 4 of them. I have not won conference 10 years in a row. We've won conference 10 years in a row. For cross country this year, we won conference for the 4th time in a row, I believe. And so we're part of like a really talented group of athletes, which has just been cool to see. But yeah, we see a lot of competition, but mainly in the northern area of Indiana. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's neat that you're able to work with that. So how does that scheduling work then with that in your classes? Is that's kind of all after classes?
It is, yeah. It's kind of all after school. Yeah, it's all after school. It's cool because I do have interaction. Being in the school and being a coach is really nice too, because I get to see my athletes during the day, which is fun. But that's nice because, practice. It's actually kind of nice to be coaching with kind of the stress of my job, because I go coach and it's a totally different group of students, and it's something that it's just different than being in a classroom. I'm still teaching, but I'm outside, I'm moving, and it's just different. So yeah, it's after school, and it's a little bit of a stress reliever for me sometimes, until we get into the postseason, and then it gets stressful for me again. So yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've really gotten involved with a lot here, and you seem to have the history teaching going on. You've got the athletics and all that. For people who are maybe looking into doing what you did as far as becoming a teacher after they graduate from college, what tips would you have for them, or things that they should look into while they're trying to decide what they should do with that?
Yeah, I would say try to make, if you have an idea of where you want to teach after you graduate, try to get as connected with that school district as much as possible while you are in college. Obviously the education program makes you do observations and practicums and student teaching, but even beyond that, I remember, I think it was my freshman year, I got involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes at Grace, and one of their missions was to come to the high school to their Fellowship of Christian Athletes every Tuesday or whatever in the morning. And so, at Grace, I got up at 6 o'clock to come to FCA at the high school. But that was good because I was making connections with students. I was making connections with teachers, so that when I finally had my interview in May of 2014, I knew pretty much everybody that was interviewing me, just from observation experience, coaching experience, being in the community. And so that took a lot of stress off of the interview process. But I got connected with a teacher up in the social studies department, and he was just like, keep showing your face at the school, keep showing your face at the school, get involved. And that sounds like the more they see you, the more they have to hire, but it does kind of speak for itself. You show that you have an interest in the school and the corporation, and they see that. And so I would say become involved. If you know what school you want to teach at, become involved, make your face available, make your face recognizable as much as possible. Yeah.
Was there anything that you found helped? I know you mentioned earlier that the job market for social studies teachers is really tight. Was there anything for specifically like social studies history teachers that you found helped beyond the things you just mentioned? I don't know if there's anything.
No, it's if you are in social studies education, I would say focus on economics. Okay. Have a focus on economics or geography. Those are areas that are not too flooded, and that you can almost find a job if you are an economics teacher. But U.S. history, psychology, American government, those are the really, really flooded areas that it's very, very hard to find a job in. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
so you got to put in some work. Definitely.
You got to put in some work. Yeah.
Try to decide what you're going to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's some good tips then. I appreciate you sitting down and talking with me here. It's been really good. It sounds like you've got some really good programs going on here. So wish you best of luck in the future with that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome.